Welcome to the Magic.me Sunday service. So here's the deal. Um, I'm doing a lot more of these live streams. I think on Sunday, probably what I'm going to do is kind of maybe more inspirational, spiritual readings, if you will, and perhaps we can have open discussions. And it's like a church service. I mean, why not have a Sunday interdenominational, shall we say, church service on Sundays? But we're going to be reading not necessarily just the Bible, but from all different types of world literature. Today, we're going to be talking about quotes from Frank Herbert's Dune and Rene Guénon's The Crisis of the Reign of Quantity and the Sign of the Times. Hello, everyone. So that's going to be today's Sunday sermon. I also think the last stream I did was about Wilhelm Reich, which definitely upset people. What can I say? The truth is upsetting. It is what it is. I didn't make it up. It's not my fault that it happened, but it is my responsibility to point it out now that I know about it. I don't like it either, but the truth is the truth. So somebody had the great idea in the Wilhelm Reich stream that I should call that Jason Liu's Agora Hour or Agora Hour, which is, for those who don't know, Agora is the Indian path. I actually am an initiated Agori. I was initiated in Nepal, where the Agoris meditate on all the worst parts of reality. They meditate in the graveyards and the crematoria. They meditate on the inevitable decay, destruction, pain, and horror of life. The shadow, if you will, but to an extreme level. And so this has been part of my, shall we say, spiritual practice for 15 years now, which probably drives some of my persona online. But I think that's a good idea because there's a lot of dark and uncomfortable things to reveal about the human potential movement, the occult, consciousness expansion, the psychotherapy, essentially the history of consciousness of Western civilization and where things went wrong, because a lot has gone wrong. A lot has gone wrong in this culture, and I love this culture. And we have some of the best ideas in the world and some of the best technology for consciousness expansion in the world. And we should be pulling out what works and what is best. This has been basically my career, giving you the best stuff that works and destroying that which is dangerous to women and children, or simply which does not work. So I think I'm probably going to do those midweek. But, hey, it's early days. I'm still learning all this stuff. I might even play video games, for God's sake. So if you have ideas for streams or topics you want me to cover or formats or anything like that, believe me, I'm all ears, because I'm not a YouTube native. I'm a newcomer to these parts, at least streaming, and I'm definitely open to people's thoughts. So what's up, everyone? What's up? So for this one, we're going to be talking about progress. Is progress a myth? Are we actually progressing into the future, or are we degenerating? There's a lot of different views on that from different, shall we say, factions in the great Mage the Ascension consciousness war. There's all kinds of factions vying for human consciousness. It always has been. And that's not just religions, but it's also more esoteric philosophies and underground and hidden groups. There's all types of groups contending for the future of human consciousness. And some of them are great, like Magic.me, and some of them are really pernicious, like, for instance, Order of Nine Angles. It gets deep. There's all kinds of secret groups running around, and the conspiracy stuff is real. The question is, how much power does it have? Well, that's for you to decide how much power ideas have over you. But there's one thing that I want to point out in terms of factionality within a live stream on live stream on Voodoo. Oh yes, that's coming, and it's going to piss a lot of people off. If you want the details now, go to Jason Liu's Hurt Locker on Medium. We will do that. So thank you for bringing that up. Man, people are going to be hurt, but fuck them. Okay. So you have, let's just say, for simplification's sake, we've got a political spectrum in the occult, just like everything else. And for what do we mean by occult? We mean, let's say, groups that are dedicated to moving human consciousness in directions it is not currently widely moving in. Okay. And that could be everything from OTO to Temple of Psychic Youth to Order of Nine Angles to ISIS to Islam, to like your local IRS, like the IRS. So there's all factions and groups, or philosophical groups, academic groups, new atheists, all this, and they're all vying for your attention and allegiance to their ideology. So if we put that on a political spectrum, let's just break it down into the left and the right. Okay. So in terms of esotericism, the esotericism of the left, the thing that I will posit that the thing that distinguishes the left from the right in the occult is orientation towards time. And in my way of thinking, magic per se is all about time, and religion is all about time. And all of these systems are about orienting yourself to time in new and different ways in order to relieve some of the anxiety of life. Yes, thank you. And yes, I have many, many animals. I love animals. I'm a huge animal person. They remind us of our simpler nature. So what do I mean by that? So on the left, most of you probably have an understanding of what the occult on the left is because it's almost like 90%, 95% of what you see online. The left wing of the occult believes that humanity, just like the left wing in mundane politics, believes that humanity is progressing into the future, that we are getting better, that we are becoming more egalitarian, that we are becoming more advanced in our understanding of the world. That the problems of humanity can be cured by future development of either technology or consciousness technology. And in general, the left wants to often gives lip service to these ideas about immanentage the eschaton, or the liberation of humanity. The Buddhists say liberating bringing Buddhist liberation to the world. But in general, there's a focus on egalitarianism and wanting spiritual liberation for everyone, and that is the forward direction of travel on the left. Now, in contrast, we have the right wing of the occult, which was buried for a long time, but which has had a very large resurgence in the last 10 years. And I seek personally, just to let you know where I'm at, I seek to embody and transcend both. Right? I am perfectly happy to draw ideas from the left or the right, and I don't give a fuck who gets their panties in a bunch online about that, because unfortunately these days people they have a talismanic relationship to ideas, meaning they'll see an idea or a phrase that they associate with the right and then immediately label that person, well, that's a right-wing extremist. And same thing with the left. People on the left will see ideas associated with the left and talismanically take it as some type of statement about who that person is. So I am interested in truth. As the Theosophist said correctly, there's no religion higher than truth. And I don't give a fuck where I get my information from, as long as it checks out, and I will look anywhere. Right. And I will also quite happily overturn, attack, and discredit sources that people tend to hold as sacred cows and expect you to go after. And for instance, attacking Wilhelm Reich, interesting, right? That's such a sacred cow that I've made multiple people blow their tops about it, because you're not supposed to criticize Reich. He's somehow achieved saint status. Well, that's not reality. So just to let you know where I'm at. So the right wing of the occult is much more interested in elitism. It is not interested in egalitarianism. It is interested in a small group of people becoming initiates and essentially lording it over everyone else. Or a better way of putting that is, in the Platonic sense, the philosopher king idea, the idea that we have an elite of consciousness, which is guiding society for its best interests. This is outlined in Plato's Republic, which I'm reading right now. So that would be the right wing of the occult, but with time orientation specifically. The right wing of the occult believes we are not progressing, we are degenerating. And that is the key to understanding it. The right wing the conservative wing of the occult, just like true conservative politics, not ridiculous American MAGA right-wingerism, which is just repeating Fox News, but true conservatism, metaphysical conservatism, the true intellectual tradition, which is a profound intellectual tradition, suggests that actually we're losing knowledge. We're getting further and further. The right tends to be theistic. So the idea is we're getting further and further away from God. We're degenerating. We're getting worse. We're losing more and more of our connection, our morality, our upstanding, our structures of society are all crumbling and falling apart. So to recap, we've got the left, which believes we're progressing into the future, some type of Marxist utopia, which is it all comes down to Marxism in the end. And I mean that literally. I mean, even, left-wing occult groups like Annie Besant's, Lucis Trust, Theosophy, and things like this are completely invested in that. So we've got the left wing, which is progressing into, and like Annie Besant was a Marxist, and a lot of the New Age, early New Age, was set up as a front for global socialism in order to push Marxist ideas on a metaphysical footing, like the idea of equality of everyone. That comes from Marxism, not from the spiritual tradition. So you've got the left progressing into the future towards some Marxist egalitarian utopia, and then you've got the right, which says we are fallen, we are degenerating, we need to go back, we need to go backwards in time. And John Dee, right, was on the right of the occult. John Dee believed that we were progressively falling from the Garden of Eden, and that the great work consisted of returning to God. The great work consisted of trying to recover our original nature before the fall. So this also breaks down to theistic versus non-theistic, where you have the right wing in general is theistic and believes at least in some initiating creator. Even if, of course, we have to admit we don't know anything about it, right? But believes in some type of creator, whereas the left does not. The left is Marxist. So I personally don't understand how you can be Marxist and into magic, since Marxism is based on dialectical materialism and is based on a purely material analysis or purely economic analysis of human existence. And discounts the role of religion entirely, which led to despotic regimes in China, Russia, and other places completely repressing religion, as they continue to do with the Tibetans. Okay, so that's our spectrum. That defines the boundaries of what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to throw out a couple quotes here. And the first one is from Frank Herbert's Dune. One of my favorite books ever. It's a profound occult book too, or book about consciousness if you haven't read it. And let's see, where did it go? Where did it go? Don't tell me I lost it. I just watched the Dune movies, Dune 1 and then Dune 2. Oh my God. If you haven't seen those, you got to see those. Those are some of the best, probably the best science fiction movies ever. The vibe is phenomenal, just phenomenal. Okay, so here's a quote from the original Dune. We'll throw up this. And I'm experimenting with sound effects, so let me tell me if you can hear this. This is meant to represent the tension you should feel, the excitement prior to me reading from Dune. Can you hear this? Let me know if you can hear that or not in the text. So here's the quote from Dune. I'm going to stick it in the chat too. By the way, let's set up a super chat goal. If I get 5 super chats, I will give more forbidden readings. Okay, so we're on and you can request ones. Come on. Start goal. What? Come on. Don't screw me around, YouTube. Okay, for some reason it won't let me start the super chat goal. Okay, but if you want a super chat, please jump in. Oh, you can hear it. Okay, great. If you want a super chat, please jump in. I will answer your questions as soon as you super chat. Also, everyone, please like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Okay, so here's the quote from Dune. Frank Herbert, the concept of progress acts as a protective mechanism to shield us from the terrors of the future. The concept of progress acts as a protective mechanism to shield us from the terrors of the future. Okay, so that is from the first Dune book. I'm going to post the quote. Okay, the concept of progress acts as a protective mechanism to shield us from the terrors of the future. This is a statement from the right, I would say. And then the other passage that I want to read is from Rene Guénon, the traditionalist philosopher who is the fountainhead, essentially, of the occult on the right. But okay. So here's from Rene Guénon, the founder of the traditionalist school. Let's throw him up. There's Rene Guénon. He was a traditionalist, meaning he was interested in finding the original tradition of consciousness and humanity. He eventually became a Sufi, right? Which Sufis are great. Unfortunately, mainstream Islam does not agree. But he became a Sufi as and this leads me to believe that a lot of right-wingers will eventually convert to Islam because they see it as the purest, most based form of consciousness. So here's what Guénon says about progress. The people of the West see the series of changes the world undergoes as a continuous progress in a definite direction. They believe that there is nothing stationary and that humanity has never before risen to the level of knowledge it has reached today. But these are mere prejudices, born of ignorance of certain truths and of an ill-considered admiration for their own achievements. The idea of progress, as they conceive it, is completely modern. It is bound up with a conception of a wholly profane civilization, aspiring to nothing beyond the domination of the material world. For them, progress can only be material, or at best intellectual in the narrowest sense of the word, since there is no other kind of knowledge for them. The idea of a progress that is indefinite, that is, a movement proceeding in a straight line with no defined end, is absurd. It implies a denial of all transcendent principle and of any higher state to which humanity might tend. In reality, progress in the true sense can only be a return to the primordial state, which is the plenitude of the human possibilities. But the moderns, instead of ascending toward this state, persist in moving further and further away from it. Their so-called progress is but a continual descent, a growing alienation from the source of all reality and truth. Their so-called progress is but a continual descent, a growing alienation from the source of all reality and truth. Frankly, it's hard to argue with that. I'm going to paste that too into the chat. So these are statements from what we might consider the right. Of course, there's a centrist position, which is simply just trying to avoid human currents altogether. That would be more like the Sadhu Taoist way. But there's two fairly challenging quotes. And so what I want to do is open this up to discussion on the concept of progress. What do you think? Is progress real? Are we actually progressing, or are we disintegrating? Maybe we're even disintegrating into environmental degradation, right? So, there's that practical aspect. The more we evolve, the more we progress, the better our technology gets. We get Tesla, we get cryptocurrency, we get AI. Well, guess what? All of that requires graphics cards that require rare earth minerals, of which there are limited amounts in the world, and require strip mining in Africa and things like this. So even from the practical aspect, is progress a myth? So we throw this out to the crowd for audience discussion. So please chime in here and let me know your thoughts. Do you believe in progress? Do you not believe in progress? Have these quotes sparked anything within you? And while you're typing, I'm going to look at the previous comments. Okay. We have, this isn't going to be too long. I'm going to be probably another 15 minutes or so, and then I need to talk to my students. So Jonathan Wilson says the Reich video was challenging but important. I agree. I really appreciate that. It was very challenging. Nobody wants any of that to be true, but the truth is the truth, and the truth will set you free. But first, you got to face it. Noel Nullington says edgy. Adora Anana says, I enjoyed St. Augustine reading. Thank you. We will do more of that. Alejandro says, did you hear about the Carla Sofia Gascon scandal? No, I don't know who that is. I'm curious to hear your thoughts because she shares many of my thoughts re-Islam. Okay, I don't know who that person is, but I will look her up. And let's circle back to that after I look at the other quotes. So Null says, you're great. Please keep streaming. Just do the Asmongold thing. React to what is the Asmongold thing? It's just react to whatever's in the news right now. My understanding of streaming is like Destiny, is probably the only streamer I've ever watched. Order 9 Angles is Dark sure is. Matthew says, could you speak on Indra's net while in meditation and cultivating compassion? Yes, that's a big topic, so maybe I can come back to that. Alejandro says, individual transcendence of the two sides of the political spectrum requires a lot of sacrifice if you adopt any sort of public-facing stance. You wonder why people are angry at me all the time. Because I don't fit into anybody's boxes. And neither will you if you begin to simply try to evaluate information on whether it is true and useful or not. Right, rather than staying in one of these enforced political echo chambers that people want you in so bad. A political echo chamber is just a place to advertise. It's not a place to find truth. So I appreciate it. Okay, I make a left-hand path. Very cool. What do centrist occult look like? So centrist, I'm not necessarily sure there's a center, but there is the peace out occult, I will call it, which is interested simply in, not progressing the world not progressing the world forward, or not trying to make it go backwards, but simply trying to disengage from humanity completely, which is probably a much more sane approach since humanity is fucking crazy. Like to the last person, let's be real about it. So examples of that would be like, a Taoist type approach, or perhaps a sadhu or yogi in India, or in many ways a Buddhist meditator who's interested in pursuing their own transcendence and is not interested in interfering with the destiny of humanity. And frankly, that's probably the best way to do it, because trying to interfere with humanity will only bring you tears. And they refuse to be herded, no matter which way you're trying to herd them in. Alejandro says, I can't personally imagine how to navigate being public about it all. Kudos to you. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. It's my job. I've been doing this for almost 30 years now. Jesse says, fallen from a gray state. Yeah, that's definitely how people see it. From a more conservative aspect, it's people have fallen from grace. They've already fallen from the original. The progressive wing believes that the future consciousness state that will be born from humanity is something totally new and utopian and egalitarian. Where the conservatives says, no, we already had that, and we can return to it at any time. It's because we've fallen from grace. We've willfully divided ourselves from God. Willfully, and that can be reconnected at any time on an individual basis, and it does not require some mass social awakening. And anyone who's my age remembers all the stuff around 2012. If you're a little bit older, you remember the harmonic convergence in 1987, and certainly everyone's seen all these new age channelings about great changes coming, and it's all horseshit. It never pans out. There's always change, right? But the question of whether we're progressing into a mass awakening, yeah, I don't know. Book tour. Okay, we got lots of comments here. All right, book tour. Yeah, I'll do let's make book tour a super chat goal, probably on the next one. Okay, this is what you shall do. Says, I would like to hear more about your thoughts on thelema, being a Thelemite, and if it should be the primary practice for one who feels called to it. Okay, that's a great question. I do identify as a Thelemite. I think it's the best not necessarily ideologically, but I believe it is. I accept the Book of the Law, and I think that Thelema, at least for me, provides the best framework within which to organize practices from lots of different spiritual traditions. So I'm interested in all of them, but for me, the Kabbalistic structure of Thelema allows me to organize it in a way that is cohesive and makes sense, which is one of the primary ways that reasons I like it, in addition to it having really, really good tech. But of course, a lot of the best technology in Thelema is not from the Western tradition at all. It's from yoga and Theravada Buddhism and Ceylon that Ellen Bennett brought in. So a lot of the best stuff is Thelema is an ongoing project. Let me put it that way. In terms of if it should be the primary practice, if you feel called to it, well, if you feel deeply called to anything, you should investigate it. If you don't, then maybe not. But Thelema, it's not a converting religion. I don't necessarily consider myself a religious adherent to it, although I certainly follow it. It's not a converting religion. It's not interested in getting more converts. At least maybe the OTO is, but I'm certainly not. And it's there for those who feel called to it. And the Book of the Law is so challenging that it requires people who come to it to really probably spend a lot of time thinking about it and sitting with it. It's not an easy sell. So, but it's also the good thing about it is you're forbidden from telling other people what to think about it. Kai the Deer Guy says, but that's probably a whole video. So thank you. Kai the Deer Guy says, progressing towards what? Well, that's exactly it, right? Progressing towards what? And mundane, remember, as above, so below. Mundane politics mirrors higher spiritual politics. The late Andrew Breitbart said that politics is downstream of culture. Well, guess what? Culture is downstream from the esoteric. We might say the art world is downstream from the esoteric, and then culture is downstream from the art world, maybe. But it's the battles behind the scenes that set the future far into the advance. So, for instance, all the social justice warrior stuff, all the woke social justice warrior stuff, that's all stuff that we prototyped in the early 2000s on the Barbalith message board, right? That came out of the occult. That was a disaster, unfortunately. So I'm doing my best to fix things, but things start in the occult world first. But so yeah, the question is progressing towards what? Towards what? I don't know. Right? Oh, what I was going to say is the progressive movement, the terrestrial, let's say progressive movement, just failed utterly. It just failed. It collapsed on itself. There's no future for it in its current form. Right? So what does this tell us? At the very least, it tells us that there are deep realignments going on, and you should really start rethinking things from first principles, because the political lines are being redrawn massively, even within the last few months. And if you don't orient yourself, potentially you could get hit with some flying meteors. So Jesse says, I think it varies. Progress in some ways and regress in others, and they change directions periodically. Yeah. Alejandro says, how can we possibly tell if there is either absolute progress or disintegration? Good question. I guess it depends on how you're seeing things. So I think a practical point is, are we progressing, or are we, what is the direction of travel? According to any given occult group, are we progressing or disintegrating? Well, I will also argue, to put a more cynical point on it, that according to any given group or ideology, if you are progressing, that means you are buying into their ideology more. And if you are regressing, that means you are disentangling from their ideology or getting further away from it. So Christianity is an obvious example. Are we really falling, or are we simply outgrowing Christianity? Well, it depends on who you ask, right? And it depends on what their own political stake in that question is. So that's also a good way to look at it. Dilly Sands reminds me of Terence McKenna's idea of the universe being a novelty generating engine. Yeah, Chase, it's just a construct, a spell. Kai says science and tech are tools, not things we endlessly pursue for no reason whatsoever. Yeah, that's been lost. The investigative spirit of science has been lost and replaced with money, like it's always about. Andrew Haskins, Chase says success is much more real and attainable. I'm not sure what type of success. Andrew says there are various forms of progress and there are many vectors of progress. So progress is real. The question is what we call progress. Is what we call progress truly progress? Well, what do you think? Simbai Bass says, Ken Wilber style, transcend and integrate. Transhumanism for the win. Heading to another planet does not mean progress. I can say that for now. So I actually disagree with that. I think that heading for another planet is the most important thing we can do. But that's also from a conservative perspective, because I don't think that I literally do not think it is possible to create a humanity or a utopia from humanity. I do not. Humanity is so big and growing so quickly that there's no way to short of total one world government control, there's no way to get it all organized in a way that doesn't destroy the resources of the planet. And there are no technological fixes coming for that. So therefore, as I've said since 2012, I might as well read this essay at some point online. Your choices are genocide or space travel, because the human birth rate is, it's fluctuating, right, depending on where you are. But in certain places, it's going through the roof. And there's only so much resources on this planet. And while there may not be, while the birth rate may actually be falling in first world countries, and our consumption is increasing, right? And our need for, rare earth minerals, fracking, things like that. So I'm a realist, I'm a pragmatist. I feel, and I have felt since 2010, and I will not change this opinion for anything, that the only way forward is space travel, realistically. So I'm all for that, and I'm all for Elon's push for it. Dilly Sand says, this also sounds like a calling towards the state of Fitra in Sufi metaphysics. What is Fitra? I don't know that. That's interesting. Kai says the Asmongold thing is never clean your house while reacting to videos. Destiny's a political hack. Yeah. He can be entertaining, though. Carla, we'll go back to... All that I see about Carla Sofia Gascon is that she called Selena Gomez a rich rat on social media, which is not exactly interesting. Is that the backlash you're talking about? I mean, I'm not sure what that has to do with anything or who this person is. Okay. But maybe I'm missing something. There are good things that come from exploring these dead ends, the scientific framework being a good thing. Well, yeah, I mean, the scientific framework is not a dead end. It's possibly the most important thing humanity's ever created, in my opinion. Real to Real, Dhammapada 421, great reference. He who clings to nothing of the past, present, and future, who has no attachment and holds on to nothing, him do I call a holy man. Yeah, so that's probably a more sane perspective, right? That would be the kind of peace out school of magic. Jesse, I would say that the physical sciences are also downstream from the esoteric, with their roots in natural philosophy and natural magic. Historically speaking, yeah. These days, the science isn't necessarily taking its cues from the esoteric, but historically, yeah, that's absolutely true. Progressing, Crunk Monkey. Are you Crank Monkey or Crunk Monkey? Progressing towards fill in the blank ideas from sci-fi and academia. I'm not sure what that means exactly, if you want to clarify. Slim Jim says, progress needs to be redefined. Every individual has their own idea of it, while the whole only has a vague idea of what it means. Yeah. Magic Elixir says, I'm a great human. I hope so. Thank you. Persona Roulette says, why isn't stagnation an option? Well, I mean, yeah, stagnation is an option. I don't know what we would call that. The PlayStation Store school of magic. And no one's stopping you from stagnating. I don't know if you want to, but... Null says, by Asmongold thing, I meant do your own thing, and what you're doing right now is great. Just talk about whatever you want and react to chat. I enjoy it a lot. Okay, thanks. That's probably the way to do it. Because like trying to prepare things and force them into a script, I do that when I'm teaching, because there are specific points I need to cover, but this seems to be its own format with its own rules. Crunk Monkey says, Null, I heard that Chick-fil-A added pea starch to their waffle fries. What? I love Chick-fil-A waffle fries. How dare they? A lot of people really dislike the flavor. Now that's degeneration right there. What? I love those waffle fries. Unbelievable. So Dilly Sand says, Fitra, okay, is the primordial Adamic state, consciousness before it fuses with form, to return to such as to be annihilated into the transcendent. Yeah, so that checks out with Golden Dawn, Enochian, D, all of that. So yeah, that kind of is what I'm talking about. Thank you for sharing that, because I didn't know that word. That's their concept for it. Very interesting. See, it's like, that's the thing. The Sufis are awesome. I have no problem with them, unless there's stuff I don't know, which is quite possible. But even they are targeted for death by mainstream Islam. Aaron quotes George Bernard Shaw saying, progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. True. And Scott says, are we progressing or are we transforming? Well, that's an open question. Chase says, I meant success is obtainable. And okay, thank you. I meant success is obtainable and a better focus because it means to just survive or continue on. Progress implies a direction, but who's doing the pointing and what is their plan? Well, that's a good point, right? It's like, it implies that progress implies going in a direction that somebody else wants you to go. So that I would say is actually much more inherently problematic than conservative ideas, because the conservative ideas we can all define that. We talked about Fitra, we talked about Return to the Garden of Eden, or if you want to make it political, talk about going back to the model for social structure from Plato's The Republic, which I think is great. I think is really good. As opposed to a Marxist left approach, which is like as somebody said, what are we progressing to? It's like, yeah, like I'm not sure. Right? Because also you see people on the left change their goals constantly, and they have so many that they can't be organized correctly. This applies to the occult and the on the ground. Science progresses one funeral at a time. Yeah. Chase, as an individual, I'm just going to survive without getting targeted by someone's progress spell. Yeah, I mean, that's probably a very healthy and wise reaction to draw from this. Dilly Sand says, Rumi says you have to be a heretic to get to heaven. Well, I must be well on my way then. Null says the downward spiral, dark 90s edgy worldview. Yeah, I grew up with that. The upward spiral equals progress is individual freedom and equality of opportunity, free thought, and free speech by all costs. Yeah, it's that by all costs that's the tricky bit. That's the by all costs, meaning the Gulag, or the Great Leap Forward in China, the Red Guard, the massacre of farmers, that type of thing. So that all sounds good up to that by all costs point. Because consciousness tends to be like quicksand. The more struggle you put up, the more you try to force things to be a certain way, the more damage it causes. It's better just to let things be, I think. Jonathan says, not sure if I can believe in progress when the human condition stays the same in a general sense. Yeah, certainly things change externally, but the things that make a human stay the same. Yeah, that's totally true, right? That's a great point. It's like for instance, in the last stream, I was reading Augustine, and I'm like, well, this is written in 200, 300 AD, something like that. And all of the stuff the first time I read that, I was in Los Angeles. I thought he's describing going out on a Friday night and seeing people vomiting and kind of pagan godless culture and just like this total degeneracy. And I'm like, and I was living near Hollywood Boulevard. I'm like, this sounds like Hollywood Boulevard on a Friday night. This is topical. The Bible is the same. If you read the Bible between the lines, what you realize is it's not a historical book. It's a book about now, right? Metaphorically. Right. But human nature doesn't change. And that's what we should know more than anyone, because studying things like the I Ching, the Tao Te Ching, Hinduism, you get answers to the questions that people have had forever. So that's a really good point, right? Vox, Desert Dweller says, just started listening to Raw, Robert Anton Wilson. Any recommendations on places to start with his work? Yeah, so Robert Anton Wilson is great. He's definitely someone to take with a grain of salt. He was somebody from the 20th century. Some of his stuff, he didn't have access to information about, like Reich, for instance, right? Like he boosted Reich. Now we know more about Reich. With Bob Wilson, the best place to start is his Cosmic Trigger, at least the first one, the first Cosmic Trigger. Read that and then read Prometheus Rising. Those are the two books. If you're going to read any, it's Cosmic Trigger 1 and Prometheus Rising. And do the exercises in Prometheus Rising. Otherwise, it's pointless. Locke says, loved your stream on Reich. Appreciate it. Others did not. Charlie says the change from this keeps on changing. Yep. Oh, so you're a crunk monkey. Very good. I developed a whole form of magic in the early 2000s involving called crunk magic. Involving yelling like Little John. Yeah, it was scary stuff. Scary stuff. Oh, we just did this on purpose. No, I wanted to do the other one. So I've got this sound effect too for when somebody makes a terrifying point. We got this too. Friday the 13th. I need one of those soundboards or something. All right. Transhumanism FTW was a joke, although I'm intrigued by all that 90s Silicon Valley utopianism from before my time. Yeah, well, it's still going, you know. It's big, potentially bigger than ever. And yeah, I remember it back in the 90s, but now they have a lot more funding to play with. So that also represents the left of the occult. Although it's interesting, you see in Silicon Valley, the same battle is being waged. You have people on the techno-utopian, progress for everyone tip, and then you have the Peter Thiels of the world who are reconstructing. And, I would still put Elon Musk on the left, despite what people think of him. He's not a conservative. He is a technological utopian. His involvement with the AFD notwithstanding, I think that, plus remember, Nazism ultimately is a left-wing movement, National Socialism. But you have people like Peter Thiel who are conservatives who are interested in, very interested in people like Ganon and Evola, for better or worse, and reconstructing a type of techno-feudalism. Yeah, fascinating stuff. Slim Jim, got to crack a few eggs at all costs. Well. No, you can't enforce freedom. Dilly says J. Krishnamurti sounds like the doctor of this complex. Okay, the brain being trapped in time thought towards or away from one ideology to another is the same coin, heads or tails. The revelation is perpetual. Yeah, Krishnamurti was great. Hey, pagans aren't godless, so they have the most gods. Technically true. Another recommendation for Cosmic Trigger. The Dune sound is so loud. Oh no. Okay, we got lots to work on here. Too loud, you pooed. Oh, man. Okay, I don't want anyone to poo on the stream. Okay, we're working out the kinks here. Kai says transhumanism is interesting. I'm not against it. Technically, glasses and phones are transhumanism. Yeah, I'm not against it either. I'll probably be the first one to get one of those implants if they come out. I'm upset. I'm a technology guy. Slim Jim, mine the asteroids? Absolutely. There's $1 trillion worth of rare earth minerals in every asteroid. It is the future. Okay, so this is going to be the last question because I got to prep to do one-to-one sessions with my VIP students from Adept. Dilly says, could you ever talk about how Guru Kripa aligns? Okay, so Guru Kripa, what do you mean by that exactly? Is that like submission to a guru? What is Guru Kripa, or grace of the guru? Okay, so the divine grace of the guru. Does it align with a magical path? One seems completely surrender-based and being the non-doer, and the other seems hyper-individualistic till self-deconstruction. Yeah, so this is going to be the last question. That's a great, great point. And that right there is worth its own whole video, I think. So I'll have to think about that. But guru, submission to the guru is necessary in the Eastern paths. And Western people are constitutionally hardwired to not do that. Certainly Americans. And so this caused a lot of wreckage in the 60s and 70s when gurus started coming over here and basically being like, you have to obey the rules. And you had hippie counterculture people refusing to do that, doing drugs, all of that. And so there were lots of compromises on the guru front, which led to standards being relaxed. And then we ended up even with sexual scandals with people like Chogyam Trungpa, with Adi Da, people like that. So, oh, you can't get away from Neem Karoli Baba? Well, you should count yourself lucky. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. You should go with that. He's the real deal. Illuminatus Trilogy recommended. Yeah. So, the reason that I teach Western magic is because it's more suited to Western people. Right. But that said, in the Eastern traditions, yeah, if you're going to go all the way with yoga, if you're going to go all the way with meditation, if you want to get enlightened at some point, yeah, the submission to the guru is necessary. Right. It's the same in some ways in the Western path, but it's a little bit more metaphysical than that, and it comes at a higher level. Okay, that's going to be it for me for today. If you have ideas for streams, please comment on it. You can comment on the videos and let me know things you're interested in. There's been some great ideas for videos in this chat, so I will do my best to assess that. We're going to do maybe do another one in the week. Okay. Lots of love. Appreciate all the positive comments. I'm going to keep going. Nobody can stop me. So I will see you next time.